One. The follow-up podcast, episode 9. We are doing the Joe Rogan experiment. Is this our first Joe Rogan, Conley?
This is our second one. Rick and Bueller was episode.
Oh, that's right. And with many more to come, I'm sure. We are doing episode 176, so we're going back into the past for this one. This is his podcast with Ben Patrick, also known as Knees Over Toes Guy, which is the worst nickname I've ever heard, but yet somehow very appropriate for Ben, as he's a bit of a goober. He's definitely a unique guy. He had his breakout, I would say, in this episode with Joe Rogan 3 years ago. He really went mainstream. He's known for having a unique training method for knees that a lot of people with knee problems are all in on fixing their knee problems. And what he teaches is there's this rule of thumb in any textbook that you don't lift anything while your knees go past your toes, right? Your knees should never be past your toes. And he challenged that. It worked for him. It's really cool. He had a injury past, and he was unathletic, but he really loved basketball. And he kept having these doctors tell him, rehab it, take anti-inflammatory drugs. All the stuff wasn't working. So he took his research into his own hands and stumbled upon an old power lifter, Joe Klatt. Right? No, that's the wrong name. But he stumbled upon an old power lifter that said knees over toes was the way to train. So he kind of researched all this on his own. He tried it on himself, and where he was unathletic and injury prone before, now he's dunking. He got a college offer. He ended up telling Joe that he got a D1 offer to play basketball at 24 after he figured out all of his knee problems. So he turned his basketball career around. Now he's a trainer that says, this worked for me. If you have knee problems, you can do this stuff. Since this episode, he's really expanded. I don't know, Conley, have you checked out his latest stuff?
Yeah.
He's got ankles, feet, shoulders, lower back, all those, like, hey, what ended your career? Joints in the body. It seems like he focuses on. Really cool. All free. I mean, he has some paid stuff online, but he kind of just lets it all out there. If you want to do a knees over toes exercise, it's not hard to find one for free. But with all that, Conley picked an absolute dud last week, but this one was an all-timer. He totally redeemed himself. I got a 95 out of 100. This is my favorite one. It stands the test of time. 3 years later, it's still great. It makes me want to go get a sled and get my butt in the backyard and start pushing. What do you think, Conley?
Yeah, man. I listened to this one. I have known of Ben Patrick for a long time. I've really liked his content, and I didn't realize he was ever on Rogan until I was coming back from the airport, and I listened to it. And it was like after a long trip, we were coming back home. It was probably getting home around midnight, and I was fired up. I was like, this is the best podcast I've ever heard. Like, I was like everything. I was just like on my toes listening to him. I had this one at a 98. The only reason it's not 100 is because I'm leaving room to grow.
Right? You got to. We gotta be judicious with our ratings.
I've been considering once we hit the 10 episode mark, I'm gonna kind of reestablish my rating system and get a more accurate rating system now that I've kind of have some context of what we're going to listen to and have just better understanding of that. Also, one other thing is this episode 1766.
I get that wrong.
Yeah, I think you said 170 or 170. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, 1766. It is a couple years old. I really like Ben. And the reason I really like him is because he just lives with passion. And like everything he does. Like throughout the podcast, you're like, only someone who's purely passionate about this, not in it for the money, anything else at all,
Yeah,
would
right.
live a life like that.
Right. He
And
wanted to
so,
fix his knees, play basketball, and then share it.
yeah. And I think that's why it's such an easy podcast for me to listen to and to get into, is because he's just passionate. Like, I think anybody, passionate people in any topic, I would listen to, even if it wasn't about athletic injuries, which I'm not a stranger to.
So I wanted to ask you that. Like, is that how you figured out about him? Were you doing your own research when you got injured? Did you hear about it from somebody?
No, I did not. So when I got my injuries, I was still fully a kid. Like, I wasn't. I thought the advice I was getting, there's no other better advice. I was going to professionals. My dog is being super loud, but I was going to professionals. They were telling me what I needed to do to rehab it, how I needed to fix it, and I just thought if I worked my butt off doing those things, it would get fixed. But my shoulders never did. I'm still having issues with them. Now it's more because I don't have as much of a drive to get them working better.
Have you done his shoulder stuff?
What?
Have you done the shoulder stuff he has?
I haven't. I've been kind of doing my own stuff. I haven't looked into his shoulder stuff. I need to. I've seen a couple of videos on him. There's a couple. Well, actually, I have been doing some of his shoulder stuff, but just like two of his exercises. I don't know if there's like a whole routine for shoulders. I'm sure there is that he has out there. Uh, but yeah, man, it's crazy. I was actually, it made me think about it. So I had labrum surgeries for both my shoulders, and I don't know. I obviously, if you tear both your shoulders, like 90% tears in your labrums, like, I feel like there's some issue to be addressed. I was athletic. I was
Like structural issue?
structural issue, like a deformity, or maybe it's just weak muscles. You have a lot of different muscles in your shoulders, right? Like, why weren't, like, we did physical therapy, but it never seemed like something was directly like correlated to the issues. Like, there has to be something correlated directly to the issues, but no, it wasn't like what if like my shoulder bone has like a, it isn't like perfectly like round, and it has a point or divot in it, and that's why it keeps tearing through,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, what if that's the case? I don't know. I don't think they ever looked into that, but
Right.
it got me, like, I there was definitely like some more research that could have gone into better ways to prevent my injuries. And so that's kind of a bummer to think about, but especially because it's kind of like too late down my road to really care about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a lot of room in that athletic injury prevention space, and obviously Ben's addressing that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, he talked about the time where, so he got a D1 offer for a scholarship, and he gets to the school, and his trainer, the lead strength coach for the school, won't let him do the exercises that have totally fixed his knees, and really won him that scholarship. And it's like, it's funny, once certain things get entrenched as this is the way to do them, the momentum those have, because that's how schools teach them. So every professional does them that way. None of them go out of the box, right? It just has such momentum that it takes overwhelming evidence to really turn the ball from going in that direction. And it's funny that it took this one guy 5 years of just fixing a knee at a time and word of mouth spreading. And then all of a sudden he's on Joe Rogan, and boom, everyone knows about him. But like, we're too early in this podcast for me to go down this road. But how many things are that way because of that momentum, right? You got a headache, go take a Tylenol. Is that the right is that the right thing to do?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was one of the things I kind of wanted to point out, is like, this podcast is what, like 2 or 3 years old, and it seems like maybe not the content, but the like, what he's doing like at a high level is what we're seeing today with all this health stuff. It's like he's actually asking these questions. He's
Right.
not just reading the textbooks, which textbooks are they inherently do not allow new information, accurate information to surface because they're these investments. And that's something that I think it's kind of, we're seeing new information come out quicker because everyone has internet access now and we're not stuck with textbooks.
Right.
So with textbooks, you invest a lot of money into them, like for schools and universities and stuff. So you don't want to get new ones. It takes a lot of money
And,
to create a textbook, you know?
right. And if you're a professor, you got your PhD, and your value comes from you memorizing that doctrine, right? And for you to admit that doctrine's wrong in a major way, and you've been preaching it wrong for a substantial amount of time, that takes like a unique individual to make that change of thought.
In this case, it took someone outside of that field,
Right.
right? And
Right.
those people in that field, they don't really like, if they do stick out and they're like half committed on an idea, you know, they're not fully sure that, hey, knee over toes is like the way to go, and they mention it and someone gets injured, then they're probably thinking their job's going to be at risk, right? So like they have to be fully bought in and as passionate as like Ben is to do something like this. You know,
Right.
it's someone who's genuinely that passionate.
Yeah, if you're that strength coach at that college and you think knees over toes is the way to go, and then your star point guard gets hurt, I mean, that's a very easy way to get canned. Where if you just do everything by the textbook and your star point guard gets hurt, then star point guard gets hurt.
Sterling, I just got a phone call and our podcast restarted recording. That's unfortunate. We'll have to.
Are we recording now?
Yeah, it's recording again.
Okay.
The first chunk should have recorded.
That's fine. We'll just patch it together.
I'll patch it together. Like it's fine. Our technical support will patch it together.
Our producer over there will patch it together.
Sweet. All right. Sorry, I missed my phone stopped working when I got a call.
So, what I was saying is like the good example is that strength coach that told him no. If he were to teach his whole team knees over toes because he thinks it's the right thing to do, and then the star point guard gets hurt, then that's a way he can get fired. That's on him.
Yeah.
But if he teaches the textbook and the star point guard gets hurt, he could be like, I followed the system, right? It's not my fault. It's just chance, right? And so you get a lot of those traps, and it's in every field. And what it makes me think of is when they say diversity is an advantage, they're talking about Ben. They're talking about this weird dude that commits his life to something, has outside ideas, will experiment on himself. That's diversity that is truly valuable. As someone that thinks differently. It's not the diversity that corporations try to check boxes with nowadays. Like you need people that think differently. That's the diversity you need to go get.
Yeah.
Ben, he was talking about he didn't have a cheat meal for a year. That's weird. That's weird. That's some weird behavior. But that's diversity. You don't get knees over toes without weird no cheat meals.
Yeah, man, he is a guru as it gets, and it's listen to him talk all day.
Yeah, he sledded every day for a year. He pushed a sled every day for a year. He didn't have any cheat meals. His diet was crazy. You heard him describe his diet.
Yeah,
His meat and fruit.
Meat and fruit diet is it,
and sometimes vegetables.
Yeah, I would love to have as much drive to do that because I think I would enjoy it. But I like it's just like it's like you go to family events, you go to any event, and like life just happens, and it's hard to like do something like that, right? It's like you're not eating at home for every meal. Like how would you genuinely do that? You just have to like I don't know. You'd have to really go out of your way to do that.
For me, it's momentum, right? I would love if you exercise every day. Eventually, you're strong enough to the point where it's enjoyable, right? You've set your body's looking forward to it. Your dopamine's looking forward to it. You could do cool shit in the gym. Like I imagine there's a day if you do it enough where working out is something you look forward to. So as much as I want that, it's hard to build that momentum to get there. And I think it's like that for a lot of the diets, especially. Is like you do it for 4 days, you break it, you give up, you forget about it. But yeah, I would love to be on a meat and fruit diet, but I love bread too much. There's no way.
One of the other things, I mean, like all of my notes just display how passionate he is. He mentioned that he responded to over 500,000 DMs before he got 100,000 followers on Instagram. A million messages? That's absurd.
He's a unique dude. Like every part of this episode, he was a unique dude. But that, you know, I don't know how many people on podcasts I got to listen to know that you and I, this podcast, it's going to take 5 years before any people like. It's going to take 5 years of us getting better at podcasts.
Do you think about how good we're going to be in 5 years, though?
Oh yeah, doing it every week.
I'm going to
absolutely.
Yeah, man. I already have seen an improvement in like my speech or presentation skills. Just ability to talk off cusp.
Right. And kind of forget about the camera. But you don't right now.
What camera?
So episode 4 was really good. If you're listening to this and you haven't listened to episode 4, I was listening to it too again. It was great. But yes, that was much better than episode 1. And that was just 4 weeks later.
Oh man, I thought episode 1 was really good. Episode 4 was good. Episode 7 is going to be really good. Episode 7 is probably my favorite so far.
Episode 8 is going to be really bad because of me. I'm sorry.
Let's go off on a little. Let's weave this. I know how much we hate to
do the weave. Do the weave. So
episode 8, I listened to a podcast and I was like, oh, I enjoyed listening to that. Sterling didn't like it. Now,
like the person.
I think it's good. Yeah, Sterling didn't not like it. He hated it. I think it's good to have diversity in our opinions, right? But I think if I don't care, like if I'm not fully bought in, like I just liked it. I didn't love it. Now, if you would have told me you didn't want to do the Ben Patrick one, I was like, I probably would have said yes, we're going to do that one.
Yeah.
And so maybe that needs to be the new bar, and I think that's going to be at least.
If one of us doesn't like it, one has to love it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I think like for the fluidity of the podcast, that's going to be what we're going
to not have another 8. I'm good with that. Weave it back.
That one kept me up at night. Anyways. All right.
Weave it back. Come on, Trump. Come on.
And that's the dedication it takes is to be able to read that.
That's right. So the one of the parts I liked is Joe Rogan was like, exercising's not that old. And it's one of the things you never think about, but humans haven't been exercising for very long, right? As far as like lifting weights, trying to get stronger, because it was forever that we were just out in the field, plowing a field every day. That was our exercise. We didn't need it. So it's funny to think like there's still a ton to learn with this.
Yeah, I think it was like last year I was watching something and it was the first time it clicked that exercise was like a new thing. It's like, oh, wow, yeah. That's really weird to think about that this wasn't always a thing.
Right. But it's got me thinking there's probably a lot of like areas that we take for granted that haven't been around that long with how fast technology's flying right now.
And you look at a lot of the traditional machines, especially in weight rooms, and they're like, ooh. Those are pretty like not like scientifically developed. They're just weights with levers.
Right. But like the other industries that we complain about for not thinking outside, just taking it for granted, I bet a lot of them are just as young and are probably just immature, right? I have a lot of beef with modern medicine. It's brand new. It wasn't since they figured out how to refine petroleum that modern medicine was born. I mean, that's got to be in the last 200 years. I mean, really, a lot of the things that really impact our lives and make our lives different from the environment we used to be in are all go back to the Industrial Revolution, right? Which is all, not that long ago.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how many of those issues are going to be items that get picked up sooner rather than later because of AI. Not to just throw
I
general
hope so.
ideas out there, but like at a high level, like that's kind of what AI promises, right? Is to be able to catch these areas that humans haven't been able to address.
Right. They're not going to get, hopefully, well, it's what we talked about. Like right now, AI is dependent on the data we give it. So it is going to be stuck in the same pattern. If you ask it how to do a squat, it's not going to tell you knees over toes, right? Because it's got all the textbooks saying don't do that. It's really going to be after AI figures out how to extrapolate from the data it has. Hey, buddy. Hey, episode 4 also had this little guy hopping in. You're good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hopeful for that too. We need it. I don't see, you can't count on there being a weird Ben Patrick in every little, niche.
I mean, that's what's happening so far. I think the internet's just allowing weird Ben Patricks to explode.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, buddy.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what
No, I agree. I think you're right. I think you're right. And
podcast.
hopefully we cover a lot of them here in this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to be helping.
I mean, it's stuff I look for. I'm sure it's stuff you look for.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't like thinking. I guess I might be a contrarian, but I like those ideas that push back on the status quo. Those are very interesting to me. I'm gonna kick him out of the room.
So, on top of kind of I think what we were just talking about, how like crazy, passionate, and unique Ben is, right? He mentioned specifically, he said he doesn't partake in like temporary forms of habits, like watching TV, eating cheap meals. And he said, what you're going to find is if you do not partake in those forms of happiness, you'll find it in your.
Yeah, you'll fill the gaps, all that void with meaningful things that will make you happy long term.
And so, like, say, like, if your excuse was like, oh, I don't, I'm not passionate about my work, so I'm going to go watch Netflix. It's like, I think what he's saying is, if you don't take in those temporary forms of happiness, you will be bored enough to go find your passion and pursue it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful because everywhere we look is dopamine. Dopamine kicks everywhere. You can spend 4 hours on your phone every single night for the rest of your life, and you'll live like most people in this world.
Right. If you want to be extraordinary, you can't be ordinary.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do what everybody else does. You're good at that. I feel like you're good at, you don't watch a ton of TV. You don't play many video games.
I really want a PS5, but I would be mad if I spent a lot of time on it. So I don't have,
right.
Like,
I like Joe's reaction. I really related with Joe where he's like, but what about all this good stuff?
oh man.
That's one of the ones where I think balance, like most things, you got to balance those two. Man, I would not trade my life for Ben's. I can tell you that right now. I wouldn't. He's had a lot of success. He's ripped. He can dunk. I can't do that. But I would not trade. There's no way I would trade.
All right, we're gonna put it in the Spotify polls. Is would you trade your life for Ben? Because I would.
You would.
Yeah,
wow.
Dude.
We need to do a poll. I like that idea.
Yeah, man. People like even like I at some point Joe was like, dude, your kid is like so in touch. Like his interaction with me, and he's like a couple years old. I want to
He's
say
a year old.
he said he was a year old. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's a great dad, and like he goes, I've been on hundreds of thousands of miles of walks with my kid. It's like that's sick. Like he's not like in one of these high overtime CEO positions where he doesn't see his family, doesn't eat dinner with his family. This dude's eating steak and fruit with his family every freaking night.
Sounds like he's making it too. I don't know. I'm always a little skeptical when people compliment people's kids. It's like a common courtesy. Like the best way to get me to like you is to be nice to my kids. Like if you're nice to my kids, I'll like you forever. It's like I don't know how much of that was Joe just being nice.
I got you. Yeah, I think that's a good
Joe
option.
saw 30 seconds of
and I think there's a million other things Joe could have took the conversation too, if that was
Maybe,
the top of his mind. I don't
maybe. And I like to think Joe's pretty genuine. But
but I would just from my brief interactions with Ben Patrick, I believe it.
I would. There's no way. There's no way. But hey, we'll see what the polls
I
say. I
mean,
like that.
that's kind of like how me and my dog are. We go on two
I'm
walks.
telling you, you're kind of close to Ben. You got a little bit of that in you.
That's what I like.
You're not a big entertainment guy.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. Me and my dog's new favorite thing is I get on a skateboard and he pulls me around the neighborhood.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I got a couple thumbs up today when I was riding around.
that's cool. That's really cool.
All right.
One of the things Ben said was like the the common misconception is when you put the pressure on your knee, that's what degrades it and makes it prone to injury. And that's why forever they said don't put your knees over toes. But he had the opposite opinion where it's like it's when you stop putting pressure on your knee doesn't get weak. That's kind of how it ages, right? And it was really similar to the Gary Brecka line, which I really like. It's my favorite line from Brecka. He's like, aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And that line's really stuck with me because now every time I choose Netflix over working out, I'm like, I'm choosing to be older tomorrow. And, longevity is something I think about a lot. So it's actually a very good motivator. I don't know what's going on out there.
Isn't it crazy that like the pursuit of most conveniences in life, like the luxuries, like all luxury items are stuff that just make life easier and make you weaker.
Yeah. It's that weird programming you have in your head. You want to work hard to where you can build a life that's easy because you have a better chance of, carrying on your DNA if you have an easy life. But it's a honey trap, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
The other thing I liked is it seems like he was on the leading edge of this wave where it's the small muscles are now as important as the big muscles, right? You've seen like rotator cuff stuff, and it's not just him. It seems like more and more people are highlighting if all you do is squat every day, you're missing all these little muscles that matter when you're not going in a straight line. I thought that was interesting. Looking back at a podcast 3 years ago, it really I feel like he was a couple years ahead of the wave.
Yeah, he definitely was. I think that was something I kind of mentioned earlier. It's like it couldn't be more relevant today.
Right.
This podcast.
I had something really exciting happen when we were listening to it because I was listening to it in the car, and you know how my kids, they're always like, no, turn on music, no podcast. But it finally happened. I've been waiting for this moment for 8 years. Max listened to the podcast, heard a fact. He really liked the fact. They were talking about the fruit, and you shit out the seeds, and that's how the tree spreads. He's like, what? Because he said shit.
In your yard.
He said shit, right? So it got his attention. But it's finally like I've been waiting. I said like I've always thought like if I'm sitting there learning, one, they're gonna say, well, dad learns every day in podcasts. So learning's important. Kind of show them rather than tell them. But two, if they're listening to a podcast, they're picking up some stuff. They might not get all the PhD level Rhonda Patrick, ribosomes and heat shock proteins, but they're going to pick up some stuff. That's good stuff, right? And it was like, it finally hit. He finally was like, what? And he liked it and he learned something. I was so excited. I was a proud dad today.
Yeah, that's cool. And I wonder how much like other like things they pick up, just like how to talk. If you hear these people who are really good at conversating talk for hours,
Right.
because that's a long podcast are, they're gonna subconsciously pick up those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And a wide variety of topics. Like now he knows being a trainer is a thing, and chemistry we might cover next time. I think it'll help him, discover what they really love. That was a big, big step for me. I would really enjoyed that one. I have a question for you. Do you think he would have come to this discovery if he would have been like a physical therapist? If he would have said, I have all these knee problems, I'm going to go to school, become a physical therapist. Because I feel like I've heard that a lot, right? You got that high school athlete that had the knee problems. Like, I'm going to go be a physical therapist because I love athletics, but it took away my dream.
I would say for the average person, no. But someone who is as passionate, crazy driven, motivated, he might have figured it out somewhere along the way, like, hey, this isn't helping. But I would say in general, no, you wouldn't if you went
Yeah.
to school.
I think it would have prevented him from doing it. I don't think I think the chance that 1 in a million chance becomes 1 in a billion.
I agree. That's a yeah. It would lower the chances.
Have you ever thought about buying a sled?
I think that would end up being a gimmick product for me, as in I would use it like once.
Once a year, and when people come over, be like, "Yeah, I use that to pull a sled," but you know,
I think I don't have. I have an okay yard for it, but I wouldn't be out there enough to use it. So that's the only reason I wouldn't like. I'm fully bought in. Like I would like a like I know there's some gyms that have like turf areas with sleds and stuff. Like if I joined a gym that had that rather than not having it, I probably would join that gym.
mm-hmm. Since I've moved here and I got that big backyard, I've had a sled in my Amazon shopping cart for the whole time, and I've never quite pulled the trigger on it. But now I really am going to consider it in the spring.
We could make you a nice sled. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Oh
That,
yeah. Oh, I
that
like
could
that
help you make
idea.
a nice one.
I like that idea. I didn't even think about that.
I
Just
mean,
welding some stuff together.
yeah. All it needs to have is a little curve at the end, right, of the two legs, just so it doesn't catch on stuff.
I know some engineers that work for me that have like garages that literally have weld shops in them.
Yeah, dude, that would be, and it would probably be a lot better quality. You
That's
just,
true.
you just need to get a belt. That's about it. If you're pulling it,
Right. Right.
yeah. I've been actually, see, I've been meaning to join a gym down the street from me for the longest time, and I haven't. I've just like, it's not my passion right now to get my strength up. I want to, but it's not a passion of mine. And there's so much I'm trying to learn right now. It's just like such a low priority.
Okay, we're gonna put a Peter Attia podcast on the list. We're gonna see if you have the same opinion. Because he's put a I'll give you a sneak peek. He has the kind of picture of his podcast as a graph that goes like this over time, and it's supposed to be like longevity. Like so the higher you build your standard when you're 30, as you naturally decay with age, it, exponentially goes down. And he says you need to build up your strength foundation when you're young and you're full of testosterone because you're only going to go south after you turn 30.
So I understand that. And I've heard that. But right now I have, and it's like what we always say. I think our quote for our podcast is there's a balance, right? But
Yeah.
it's either right now it's the exponential returns of my career or
Mm-hmm.
returns in the longevity. So I'm trying to find a
Right.
balance.
Right. That's true. That's
That
true.
balance is a lot easier to do uh, with like stuff around the house, like as far as exercises and staying active. Now, I don't have any equipment to really gain muscle mass, which I understand is very important for longevity and health in general. So that's like the one area is just like muscle mass, what I want to work on, but I just haven't got around to it. It's a shame.
No, and it's like it's a tragedy. It's like it's not what's the word? It's not a tragedy. It's like such a first world problem,
Oh yeah,
right? You have all these like you can choose to be super athletic, you can choose to be have a killer career, you can choose to have a great family, You can't really choose all of them. You really can't. You gotta find that balance that works for you. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I hear you on that.
because like I said, I hurt my shoulder recently, and like I retore my labrum, and like just when I went to at the beginning of the podcast when I told my dog to stop scratching himself, like it caught my labrum, and it hasn't happened for like 2 weeks since it's like caught in the tear, but it did, and I'm like already thinking about it again. It's like, yeah, we're just not doing a good enough job doing like physical therapy stuff or just
Rehabbing.
having it, and it's like, shoot.
That sucks. I've been blessed to never have like a recurring nagging injury. It's good. I think it's because I played 2-footed basketball. It's one of the blessings of not being able to dunk is you're the first one to
I
land.
mean, it is my lower body. Like my lower body's been fine. It's just, I think it's just my shoulders. I don't. All my other joints are, they're feeling
Yeah.
good,
Well, maybe you could pick up soccer.
dude. So this is something I've thought about. Is like, how am I going to guide my kids? I have to think. I need to have them in a sport that if their shoulders go out, they can play a sport.
In case they get the genetic
Dude, I
deformity.
I'm not kidding you. I would be so devastated. I think it would probably be the first time in my life I'd be depressed if my son was like really good at sport and like just tore the crap out of his labrum.
They just looked at you and be like, Dad.
If I did not give him a backup plan, I would be darned.
So
So
what are you gonna do? Is it gonna be soccer?
that's high on the list. Weirdly enough, you're not gonna like this one. The
Baseball?
the motion, heck no, the motion of tennis has never affected my shoulders.
Because you always hurt them
Literally,
going back, right? It's
what?
always you always hurt your shoulders going back.
Yeah, or like pushing, like so if something pushes me back, like stopping that
Right.
resistance.
Right.
It's kind of like when you hit a ball. Anyways, I've never had an issue with tennis, so that's there. But soccer, tennis, yeah.
Why tennis?
So as a tall person, a tall athletic person, I think you could play at a high level of tennis, just being tall and athletic.
But don't you have to go to like one of those Florida schools?
Why?
Like you have to go to an academy. It's kind of like soccer. Like from a young age, you have to go to one of those academies. I think. Now I'm no tennis expert.
Couldn't you just
Don't
play?
don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. But
I could see, but couldn't you just play up in levels? Like if you're younger and you're really good, just play high schoolers or play local college kids till you just keep on, just growing.
all those European sports, because this is kind of how they do it over there. Like you enter academies when you're 12 years old, and you go pro when you're 16.
But do you think those professionals are like that much better than the average player compared to other sports like basketball and football?
No, I just think you're not going to go to Glenwood and compete against people in Illinois and be able to compete with the 12-year-old going to Monteverde and playing overseas at Junior Wimbledon.
Well, that's just
It's like
anyway.
it's like a competition thing because tennis is where are you going to find competition in the Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, but that's like what once they get in high school though.
I feel like tennis is one of those weird sports that starts younger than that. But I mean, maybe you can catch up. Like maybe you can like just make a freak athlete, and then if they decide tennis is their sport, they can go pick it up. But I would say most of the tennis people went through that academy pipeline. Is my read on it.
Anyways, even if they go play Division 1, like that should be attainable.
That's true. I mean, a scholarship is a scholarship.
Yeah, just something, like it's really more just like allowing them to find a sport they're passionate about, and then having
Yeah.
a second sport they can be passionate about. If basketball or football doesn't work out.
I actually love this topic because I have a whole thing because I'm a schemer, right? We have them in in two sports at a time. That's our goal. Two sports per season. I want them to be good at soccer. I want them to be good at wrestling. I want them to be good at gymnastics, just to build their freak athleticism. And then, the other sports, basketball's my favorite, so I'm always pushing basketball for like hand-eye coordination and all that. And it's like just build that foundation, and then, come middle school, they can kind of narrow it down to two sports if they want. But
Yeah, I think that's a good approach.
it's hard. It's time more than money is what I found. Like, you can have all the money in the world. That doesn't mean you have time to take your kid to all those practices. It's hard. It's one of the benefits of homeschooling, really, because you don't have a normal schedule. You can do other things when you would normally be taking, on Tuesday to soccer practice.
I think, yeah, it's a different topic.
All right, let's wrap. Unless you got anything else.
I have so just to explain. So I don't know if you picked this up, but I thought Ben's demeanor from the start of the podcast was just absurdly calm. You know how nervous we would be if we were on Joe Rogan?
I think
built
Joe
ground up.
has Yeah, I think Joe's mastered to like show him around the studio, talk to him, kind of take their but I know what you mean. I chalked it up to he's a weird dude. Like, this dude is weird. I like him. I liked him a lot. I loved the episode. I like his material. I do knees over toes. But weird.
Yeah. And that's what it takes. I mean, so for you, how do you find your confidence? Like, if you were to go on Joe Rogan and you were trying to come off confident and like calm, how do you?
There's like a couple of those like, trendy psychological tricks you can do that I try. Confidence is, I learned this from David Tracy. He is the one that taught me confidence. But there's also that Alex Hormozy line where it's just like, confidence is not shouting affirmatives at yourself that you can do it, you're the best. That's not confidence. Confidence is proving to yourself by doing the thing over and over and over again that you're capable of doing it. And that's where I get the confidence at work at. It's like, I've done this before. I've survived the hardest program in aerospace. I can lead this team. So when it comes to speeches, when it comes to interviews, when it comes to like this face-to-face putting on a show, it's from doing it like we're doing now.
Yeah.
I think any other confidence is bullshit.
Yeah. I find myself the most confident in the thought that goes through my head that like brings me back to being calm if I'm nervous about something is I prepared as much as I could have for this. There's nothing else I could have done. That's why I was calm in sports, and that's why I think I work so hard at a lot of things. Is because I know when I get in that moment, I'm gonna have to ask myself, did I do everything I could have?
There's a clip. I'm gonna see if I can find it real fast. You ready? I'm gonna share this.
That was pretty quick, Jamie.
Hey, you're the producer. I'm the clip guy. All right. It's got an ad right now. They're gonna get a free ad on our podcast.
First sponsor. Oh, I saw this today. Can you put on closed caption?
Isn't that dope?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I think.
Yeah, that's gangster. Like that.
So if for some reason the audio didn't go through on the podcast, it's a video of Joe Burrow from this week, and it asks him how he finds confidence, and he says, "I get my confidence on Saturday from the preparation from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday." In short,
only he's got like some swagger when he says it. Like,
not as much as a nerd like me. He's like sitting back with his
right,
Joe.
Right, like eye to eye with this on national television. Just it's like, yeah, I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good at what I do because I work my butt off during the week. That's swagger. That's confidence right there. This whole like Gary V, like, you just talk it into fruition. Yeah. Energy. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I think that does work, but to a certain point. I
Disagree.
I think it. Yeah, I think it works at a certain point, but that's fine. Disagree there.
What else do you have? You have one more thing.
Yeah. So I guess just once again, they kind of show you who Ben is as a person. I thought this was just now. This was the one thing on the podcast. I'm like, I just don't get it. So he goes into detail about how he will not do any other thing for his like physical health, for his like knee health, like rehab, like massages, stretching, vitamins, because he wants to prove that his exercises are the sole reason his knees are so bulletproof and his body
Mhm.
the way it is. That's absurd. He is so body.
One might say weird.
Yeah. And it is genuinely why he is in the position he is today. Is because he's
Yep.
that passionate.
Yep.
He he he
Absolutely.
he acknowledged that there are these probably other areas that could help as well. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to
Right.
show you knees over toes in general will unlock this new ability for you, basically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like that's diversity. Like that's the diversity every team should look for. Every group should look for. That's what makes America great. That the diversity in that aspect. All
That's
right.
the note I had.
Let's wrap.
Yeah, you want to lead takeaways?
I will. I had the exercises that last time. I actually did a pretty good job after I listened to this episode for like 6 months doing these, but I want to bring them back. It's the sled, it's the tib raises, because that's what cramped up on our triathlon we did. And so next triathlon, if my tib cramps up again, that's on me.
You need a bigger pedal too, but yeah,
Yeah, I know.
that would help.
And the last was the monkey feet. I've never done monkey feet because I've never had like a cable machine, but I started doing leg raises, and one is alarming how weak my hip flexors were, and two, they got stronger a lot faster. They're one of those muscles you can work out every day, it seems like they're never sore the next day, but you can feel yourself getting stronger. And I know my hip flexors are one of the reasons I'm so slow. I can just feel it. Other people can just move their legs faster.
Yeah, man. Hip flexors are crazy. Like they affect everything.
So that's what I want to take away. I want to do those more. I just want to mix them into my normal routine more.
Nice, nice. That's good. I think I might go to the gym tomorrow. Actually, I am gonna go to the gym tomorrow. I am gonna go.
Good. You need to work on those shoulders.
Now I have to.
You're not allowed to give up on basketball.
We're on a brief hiatus, but I'm not giving up. I never said it was my
Okay,
last.
you better not give up. Hunter already tried to retire.
But dude, yeah. We can't be making this worse than what it is. So
We
anyway,
didn't freaking fix it.
dude, it takes a lot of work and time.
When are you coming down to visit?
Hey, I gave you
You
one
bet.
job about 2 months
You
ago.
better be ready to play basketball.
Oh, you might
Dude,
push it
no,
out.
you're not invited. You're not invited. You can stay home.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
You can stay home.
No one's more disappointed than me. Actually, you might be.
be. That might be.
Yeah,
Because
no.
I can't play basketball against any other brother. It's too easy.
I mean, yeah, someone's
I
gonna.
hope they're listening.
We'll figure out who listens. um, yeah, dude, I haven't played basketball in like a month and a half because of it. But anyways,
That's no way to live.
that was
That's a wrap.
Have,
Episode 9, the
sorry.
Follow Up Podcast. See
Yep.
everybody.